Welcome to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. Our guest today is Deborah Heiser, the author of The Mentorship Edge. I'm super excited to dive into this topic, so let's get into it. Hi, Deborah. Thank you so much for joining me on the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'd like to just start out with having you introduce yourself, if you would.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm an applied developmental psychologist. I spent years studying everything in aging that we don't want to experience or have. And I pivoted. I'm now the CEO of the Mentor Project. And I look at everything that we should look forward to in life from midlife on. So I'm also the author of the Mentorship Edge as well.
Nice. Okay, so I want to talk about your book specifically. Sounds like the aging piece and the mentorship. Tell me a little bit about that and kind of how do those go together in your book? Is that part of kind of the overall message that you have?
It's it's a message. So basically, we're all built to mentor. And I didn't know this. But when I started to look at what we have to look forward to in life, there's a developmental trajectory that we follow for our
Mm.
emotions. I had no idea about this. But really, what happens in midlife is that we're built to want to give back. And that's because we need to have meaning in our lives and purpose and a sense of, wow, I've accumulated all of this stuff, meaning, knowledge or skills or values. And no one wants to hoard it, like Daffy Duck sitting on a pile of riches. We all want to be able to show people a little bit about what we've learned or gained and make sure that that makes it beyond us into the world. So that's really the connection between aging and mentorship. Mentorship is that component in midlife.
Got it. So tell me more about your book and why you wrote that and who you wrote that for. So the Mentorship Edge is the title, and who is your kind of target reader for that book?
So the target reader is really anyone who's in midlife. It is for people who are in business who are doing mentoring incorrectly or thinking about it. The word is used so liberally that a person could walk their dog and say, I'm mentoring my dog. It's just overused. So it's for people at work or at home. Most people don't realize that a lot of the most important mentoring happens outside of the workplace. That's, religion has been passed down for centuries. Nobody really cares about accounting long term, but they care about the values, the culture, the traditions that we have, and those get passed down and are incredibly important to us as well. So it's not just for people at work, but for people in life in general, in midlife.
Okay, so I want to dig into that a little bit. I clearly loved what you said about you could walk your dog and say you're mentoring your dog. So what is mentorship to you? Like what is not just to you, but like what really is mentorship then if it's not just, anything you're showing somebody how to do, but what is true mentorship?
So I really dug into the research with this and into the theory that went along with, what Eric Erickson posed decades ago. So mentoring is that you have to start with generativity, and generativity is defined in the book, but I'll give a quick definition. It's
Yeah.
caring for someone else without expecting something in return. And
Mm.
we all get that. Imagine giving a gift at the holiday season and you see some kid's eyes light up because you gave them the most amazing gift, or some loved one or a friend or whoever. How great that makes you feel. That's what generativity is. It's wanting to do something for someone else without expecting anything in return. The reward for you is that amazing feeling you get. The second thing,
Keep
oh,
going, keep going.
the second thing that we need to have is intrinsic motivation. So if
Mm.
you're at work and you're getting paid to mentor, you're not a mentor. That's extrinsic motivation. So it's being motivated without money, awards, rewards. Most of us mentor without anyone ever even knowing that we did it. And we still are able to get gratification from that. So an example that I like to give about that is if I were to say to you, hey, would you like to go volunteer at a soup kitchen? You would probably say yes. And I would say, okay, great. And you would probably say, I feel so good about doing that. Then if I said, how about if you volunteer at Starbucks? You would not feel so good about that. And
Mm.
that's because you would expect payment. You wouldn't feel good about volunteering your time while everyone else is getting paid. That's that feeling people get at work when, they're being told that they're a mentor and they feel that burden and it doesn't feel so good. And the other thing we need is a meaningful connection. We have to like who we're mentoring, and we have to like the person who's mentoring us. It has to be that we feel meaningfully connected to that person. That is usually not set up in a workplace. You're assigned someone. And, if you say, oh, I don't like this person, I don't have a good vibe with this person, it's considered a failure. But
Mm.
if you think about friendships or how we develop all of our relationships, if we don't have a good vibe with somebody, we don't think of that as a failure. We just say, that's not my person. And in mentorship, it's the same kind of thing, that we have to find the right people, someone who wants to catch our information that we're giving and someone who wants to give it. We also need to have trust. Trust is
Yeah.
key. If
Mm.
you are at work and you don't feel comfortable telling someone who's your boss or someone 2 levels above you that you don't know how to do something, it's not going to work. And how many people have ever been in that situation? I'm not going to tell that person I don't know what I'm doing. They'll fire me or they won't give me a good performance review. I'm supposed to know everything. So there has to be trust. And a mentor has to trust that the mentee isn't going to steal something and run away with it also. Do something like that. And finally, there has to be a goal. So if you're just chit-chatting, that's not mentorship. So all of these things are needed for the mentor and the mentee to create mentorship. That's why it's not mentoring when we walk our dog. That's why it's not mentorship usually in the workplace if a person's job requirement requires them to do it. They might be an advisor, they might be something else, but they're not a mentor.
Okay, I have so many questions for you. So tell me, what is the things that you were saying? I was thinking about leaders that I've had, right? And thinking like, well, one of the first things you said is, we're all meant to mentor
Mhm.
early on in the conversation. And my first thought was like, really, are we? But I keep mixing up mentorship and leadership in my brain as you're talking. So what is the difference between those two?
So a leader doesn't have to mentor, they're leading. They're able to delegate, tell people to do things, and people will do it. You do not have to mentor while you're leading. Is it nice to be able to mentor? Yeah, but you don't have to be a mentor and a leader. You don't have to be a mentor in anything you do. Um, Mentoring is really, if you want to think of mentoring, think of grandma who passes down the recipes and traditions for every holiday. Is now grandma's a leader, maybe, but most of us don't think of that. We think of maybe somebody who's a military person as a leader, not grandma, so they're very different. Both
Hmm.
mentorship is not meant to make a leader. Mentorship is a transfer of knowledge, expertise, skills, and values. It's more of an
Well,
emotion thing.
yeah. And leader, so I think I, as a leader, kind of mix the two. Like I think that's my style, is to be a mentor as I'm leading. But you mentioned how, when it's different in the workplace than it is outside of the workplace. So can you talk about that a little bit? Just, do you encourage people then to find opportunities for mentoring outside of the workplace? And because it sounds like that's where what you
Well,
do. And if so, like what I know you're not supposed to do it to get something out of it, but what is the purpose of it really? Like why do you encourage people to do that if you do?
so let me give you an example, though. Most people say I mentor while I work. You're actually being a good leader, is what you're doing. I would say that you're probably being a good leader. Maybe you're not mentoring. Maybe it's that you are leading. So an advisor in college is somebody who's giving out advice. It's everything that you would imagine a mentor would be doing, but they're paid to do that. They're not a mentor. Once
Mm.
they leave the workplace, so you can have an advisor who becomes a mentor outside of the workplace, but when they're at work, they're getting paid to do that. That's an advisor. So you are being a good leader when you're doing the things that you would maybe consider helpful to people, useful, giving out information, but that's your role as a leader. There are bad leaders, leaders that don't do that. They hoard everything, but I would just call that a bad leader.
Okay.
So can you mentor in the workplace? Yes, you can. And we all do it. It's a form of lateral mentoring that I often talk about, that comes about where somebody will say, hey, I need help. I'm a software engineer. I'm going to go ask the hardware engineer in a different department to help me out. That hardware engineer has nothing to gain from helping this person other than that he likes the person or wants to see that succeed. This happens all the time in the
Hmm.
workplace. And no one's getting paid. The thing that we get out of it is that we feel good when we see somebody succeeding. We do naturally. If we are in a hierarchical position, and we're doing the mentoring that way, we often don't feel that way because we feel vulnerable with our own jobs. Like, oh, I'm going to help them and then they're going to get the promotion above me. No, no, no. That's very natural. So I say in the workplace to really look for lateral mentoring, where it's a person with the expertise in a different area, same level as you, maybe different department, maybe your own department, maybe it's not in your work at all. But that's where I would say that it is. But most jobs label things as mentoring when they're not, and that makes it feel like mentoring doesn't succeed all the time. And that's where I try to talk about that in the book, because you should be able to feel like you're the better leader because you do the things that come in with mentoring. Someone who's not doing those things that are more interpersonal is probably a bad leader. So that's where I would make that distinction.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting. I love this. I very interested in the topic of your book, and I'd love to know kind of what led you to write the book in the first place. Kind of what was the, the title of my podcast is Beyond the Bestseller. What was Beyond the Bestseller for you? What was the purpose in, how did you, not asking that question very well, but why did you want to get that message out?
I wanted to get the message out because there's a lot of misconceptions about mentoring. It's talked about by people who never really have looked at it from a level other than how can I succeed in work and how can I get my employees to be labeled as mentors and get more work out of them. It felt to me like that everyone's trying to squeeze something out of people, and that's completely not what it's about. So, I formed the Mentor Project, and it has more than 100 top leaders in their fields, from astronauts to Nobel Prize nominees, artists, and they're mentoring for free. I was told no one will ever want to do that if they're really successful. We have to beat people off with sticks to come in because people want to come in and do this. So how is it that we have all these people doing this for free for us and they get it so wrong in the workplace? And people aren't acknowledging it in their home life. Like people, you ask, how did that tradition happen in your family? I'm like, I don't know. How do these things happen in our lives? So I wanted to write the book to give a clear definition of what mentoring is and what it isn't. And really say, here's what networking is. Here's what, being an advisor is. Here's what a sponsor is. Here's what all of these other things are that people are sort of mixing in with mentorship and kind of taking from here and taking from there, and then not really getting satisfaction out of any of it, sort of feeling like it's all landing a little short. So the idea was really to set the stage right, to say that mentorship comes from an emotional component in our lives. And if we can engage in it properly, it's unbelievably impactful. Our tech revolution happened from lateral mentoring. The founding of our United States happened from lateral mentoring. Those were all experts in different areas. When we do it right, literally everything changes and it's explosive.
Nice. How did you approach the process of writing your book? I'd love to know this. Just kind of when you decided, I want to write this book, how did you go from that to finished manuscript?
I literally sat in my dining room and I just wrote. It like fell out of me. It truly just fell out of me. And I didn't write it as chapters. So the publisher, Wiley, gave me an editor, and I just was giving her chunks of information. And she would read through it and she'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? And I'd say, I just have to get these things out, like the vignettes, the stories about the people who mentored and all of the different things. So I'd just send it all to her. And then when I had it all turned into her and she had edited it, I had to then put it into chapters. So then I'd say, okay, this one, this is how it all goes here. And then I did that. And then I had to do the transitions for each chapter. So I did it in a way that I knew for me was going to be useful, which is just sort of do a a sort of dump into the computer to get anything I could out so I didn't sit and then say, oh, I can't do it, or I'm going to procrastinate. So I really and truly just sat for hours just doing that until I couldn't anymore, and then went back the next day and did more. And it didn't take long. It took about 3.5 months.
That was going to be my next question. In 3.5 months. Okay. So you're lucky because you have, you must have that message really clear in your mind, and it was really easy to like data dump it. I think some people need kind of prompts or a little bit more like help to get it out of their head. I mean, most people, CEOs, entrepreneurs, they have it in their head. It's just sometimes it doesn't easily flow like that. So it sounds like that was easy for you. It's not for everyone, but that's really interesting to hear your process there. Now, the book that you wrote, you mentioned it was Wiley was the publisher. So you already had a publisher before you wrote the book. It wasn't something that you wrote and then found a publisher to publish it. What about the marketing side of that? Did you, because I actually just had this in my last podcast interview, we were talking about the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing and the marketing side of that. So I'm curious what your experience was without putting any of that previous conversation here. I want to know what your experience was with the marketing side of things once the book was published.
Oh, they don't do anything for you. So
that's what I said.
Okay. I mean, honestly, if I self-published or if I published with this, and I only have nice things to say about Wiley. I think they were great through the process and wonderful. But honestly, if that's what you're looking for, people are like, why aren't you on a book tour? Why aren't you on this? And I'm like, well, they don't do that. And so you're left to your own devices to market. And that's a downside unless you're a good marketer.
Yeah, unless you're a good marketer. But yeah, that's exactly what I said. So I'm glad you confirmed it. I was curious though, like, what direction did that go for you? But because I think, there is this little bit, I mean, it's changed a lot in the last 15 years, but there's still a little bit of that stigma around publishing traditionally or self-publishing. And, I think some people think, if I get picked up by a traditional publisher, they do all the marketing for me. And the reality is that's not the case. I mean, either way you publish, you're going to be on the line to do the marketing. And if you want to sell your book, then, you better prepare for that. Even while you're writing the book, that you start getting the word out. So what for you have you found has been successful to help you market your book?
I will say that I don't know how successful I am, first of all. But I'll just start with that. I think that I'm learning. I think that putting myself out there, the biggest thing, I'm not great with the social media, and I don't know how helpful that is, but I am working hard at doing podcasts. And I find that is one of the, like, I reached out to you. I think that this is a way to be able to get in front of people who would never read what I have or see anything. I also happen to have a Substack, so I'm able to put on that. I have about 10,000 people on that. So that's another way that I've done it. Honestly, though, it's really a lot of work, to do it. Those who have really aggressive or amazing social marketing skills online, I've talked to other people and I haven't seen their sales better than mine. So I think that a lot of it is being able to get face to face with people like yourself. Like, your platform for authors is an amazing one. Like, this is a gift to authors, really.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm growing it, but I appreciate you saying that. So one question, this is maybe outside of this podcast kind of theme, but when you brought up Substack, I wanted to ask you about that because I hear Substack come up, and I really do not know what Substack is. I need to explore it. I mean, the fact that it keeps coming up in my conversations tells me I need to explore it. But how would you kind of describe what Substack is and how people marketing anything really might be able to use it?
Here's what I would describe it as. I don't like social media because I feel disconnected with people. I feel like I'm just putting stuff out there, and is it landing? Is it not? And I don't know that likes translates to anything. Are they reading it, or are they just like saying, oh, I'm trying to be nice. But Substack is more of an interaction with people. You're actually communicating about the writing that people have. So I've had mine before I started writing the book, and I read other people's articles. They're small, they're blogs, and I get to, if you're a writer, it's a good place to be. If
Okay.
you like to read, it's a good place to be because you get
Okay.
to see what people are doing and talking about. So when I write about, here's my book, people are interested in looking at it because I've been writing all along already. I don't know how successful it would be if you wrote your book, it got published, and then you started your Substack. I think
Okay.
that you want to start it ahead of time so that people know that, you're not just marketing to them, that you are actually interested.
That's great. Well, that's really good to know. And I have so I have an author power circle, a community for women, and I think that are the women that most of them are in the process of writing their book. So that's really good for me to share with them. So I'll have to explore it and then share that as a resource with them so that they can check that out while they're in the process of writing. And I don't know, I think you mentioned you and I met on Podmatch. I think you said that, but I just wanted to reiterate that because that's another resource that I'm brand new to Podmatch. I just joined, oh my goodness, like within the last week or two maybe. And I have like 20 podcast episodes scheduled from all the interactions I've gotten on Podmatch. So anyone who's podcasting, man, either on either side, whether you're a host or a
Yeah.
guest, that is absolutely an invaluable tool. So yeah, so I'm really glad we met there. Just to wrap us up, Deborah, I will link to the link in the show notes. I'll link to your book, but is there anything else you would like me to share there or ways that people can find you online?
Sure, you can go to LinkedIn, but you can also find my Substack, Deborah Heiser, PhD. But the biggest thing, check out the Mentor Project, mentorproject.org, because you can really see what mentorship in action looks like. And it's a great place. We offer free mentoring to students around the world from world-class experts.
Great. Well, I will link all of those. And thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise here. I can't wait to learn more about it. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Looking for a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyshuckneck.com.